Michigan versus Ohio State. The Buckeyes travel to the Big House to play the Wolverines. This is a GMG Special Edition. Your Vikings coverage will resume shortly thereafter. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, it's Good Morning Gjallarhorn, and we have a special edition for you. Not only do we travel and play the Seahawks this week, and we'll get into that on our normal show, but this week is the big game up at the Big House. Where the Ohio State Buckeyes will travel to meet the Michigan Wolverines. And as most of you know, my co-host Drew and Ted are avid fans. And like in previous years, I'm going to let them talk about it. Have fun, guys. Who's going to win?
Michigan's going to win. They're going to shock the world. They had to wait for Ohio State got bumped up to first, number one team in the country yesterday.
Okay.
Oh, that's really been I'm hoping for a win. It's going to be a long shot. We're going to need some turnovers, but you know what? Like old Bo Schembechler said, we battle to the end. Team.
Yeah. Old Bo Schembechler never won it. Got as many national championships as a head coach as I do. But that Bo Schembechler.
I've seen it's really a tale of two centuries. You know, that from 1897 to 1927, Michigan won 27.
Really?
Michigan was 27-3 during that time frame.
We're talking about things that happened before the Great Depression?
Come on, man. Been on lean times lately. Michigan's due for a win.
You had one in 2011?
Yeah, Ohio State has what? They have the number one defense in the country. They have, what's that, Schembechler Young, that Chase guy on the edge.
Chase Young. I'll tell you what.
They've been beating everybody's ass by 20, 30 points a game. They average 49 a game, everything, whatever, but they haven't had a game where they fell apart. And I don't want to count last week fumbling at the end zone as falling apart.
Really? Because it was 21-17 late third quarter. I mean, it was anybody's game for a while. That was they kind of, you talk about them not. You said, was it last show that if Ohio State if they had an error-free game and blew out Penn State, that Michigan would win. But if it was a close game, Michigan would end up losing to Ohio State. And they had a pretty close game.
It didn't seem that close. I mean, Fields fumbled across the end zone. He's supposed to save that for the Big House this week.
No, he got it out of his system last week, man.
We're going to need turnovers. We're going to need Dobbins to come up with bad hammy. Got a plan, man. What's your do you have any games between Michigan and Ohio State that stick out in your head more than the others?
Yeah, I got a couple. In 2001, and I actually wrote about this when I used to write for a Big Ten site on SB Nation called Off Tackle Empire, and one year they asked us for kind of a sports deployment memory, and so I wrote about it. I don't talk about what I did a whole lot, but in 2001, it was right after 9/11, of course, and I was deployed, and I was over there for the game, and it was, I don't know, you probably remember it. It was the year, it was Tressel's first year, and we're coming out of the Cooper years, the 2-10-1, and
right
in the 90s, I was in the military and living overseas or whatever, and so I only saw one or two Ohio State games a year, but I always saw the Michigan-Ohio State game. They always put it on the Armed Forces Network, and Ohio State always lost in the most painful ways imaginable. And so, I distinctly was seeing the video clip on ESPN where Jim Tressel stands up at halftime of a Michigan-Ohio State basketball game the day he got hired. He said, in 310 days.
I remember that. I do.
In Ann Arbor, or he said you're going to be proud of these men in the classroom and on the field, and in 310 days in Ann Arbor, and the crowd went nuts, and we were like, finally, we got a guy who gets it.
Proud of our young people in the classroom, in the community, and most especially in 310 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the football field.
And so I went into the mess hall, and, we didn't get a whole lot of TV. I mean, I really didn't have time to watch TV, but had a few hours off. It was like 8 o'clock at night or something like that the game started, and I kind of off that night. It was mission plan, and so I was able to go catch the game. And I watched Jonathan Wells just kind of run wild in the first half. They kind of hung on for dear life in the second half. I'm like, man, finally won. And then the next year when Ohio State intercepted, I think it was Chad Henne in the end zone to win and go to the Fiesta Bowl, and then win the national championship.
Oh, come on, man. It's good to be talking with a fan who went through, because there's eras with Michigan. I mean, that old 70s stuff, the two gruff ass coaches who didn't give a shit about anybody. They were just like cut from the same mold. I mean, to hell with everybody, hard on you at practice, flip you the middle finger. Both guys were the same. It was just tremendous.
Yeah.
And the rivalry that was born out of that from '69 when Schembechler took over the Wolverines from, he was under Woody, and he took over the Wolverines, and it started from there. But I remember the Wolverine Buckeye games at my house in the 70s were bigger than like Thanksgiving or Christmas. We would get, 10, 15 people for the holiday for Thanksgiving. We'd get like 40 for that game.
Really?
And it was a big, big event at my house. And it was like, remember the old days, it was all running. They would run against each other. There was no passing.
Yep.
They probably went 5 seasons with one touchdown pass. So it was whoever could run the football better. It was just just a running game war is what it was. And I remember one time Rick Leach, the old lefty for the Wolverines in 76 or 75, sometime in the mid-70s, he went back to hand it to Butch Woolfolk out of the backfield, and he did a play action. And like the whole room became silent. And one of my uncles said, "What the hell are we doing?" They threw like 4 passes a game, dude. It was really rare. And Leach went back and he threw like a 20-yard square out or something to I don't even know who it was, to Wangler or something. But it was such a different style of football. The rivalry has just come. The only thing that's been ruining the rivalry is Michigan not holding up their end of it.
I think Michigan is holding up their end of the bargain.
The 70s and 80s were just some serious wars. I remember the two that stand out to me was the Desmond Howard punt return. That'll always be special when he took it up the sidelines and did the Heisman pose. That and I think 95 when Biaka Patuka ran wild, and I think Ohio State was number 2 in the country going into that game. They were undefeated, number 2 in the country, and Michigan just for some reason just had everything going that day.
They could do no wrong, and that was I had just gotten to Germany when I was in the Army, and that was the first Ohio State game I'd seen all year, and I hadn't seen Ohio State play, and I thought to myself, how is this team ranked second in the country? They look terrible because Tim Biaka-Patuka ran for over 300 yards, and I'm saying, who is this clown? And so I hate him not only for that. then when I started playing fantasy football right around that time,
and he was on Carolina,
and he was terrible. He was terrible for.
Oh, he was
a fantasy weight that dragged your team to the bottom of the ocean. I hate Tim Biaka-Patuka. Hate him.
In the 70s, it was always Butch Woolfolk or Rob Lytle or Johnny Keyworth. Michigan seemed like we had the same running backs for 12 years, but it was
for Ohio State. It was Archie Griffin, who always played well against that team up north.
I remember.
Remember the quarterback they had, Cornelius Green, handed off to Archie Griffin.
Yes. Yeah. I can't remember any good running backs besides Griffin, though. And they've always had tailbacks at that school. So
yeah,
I don't remember another guy till Claret. I mean, that's like the last guy between the 70s and then I really remember.
Keith Byers, Eddie George.
Oh,
Keith Byers was a great back in the 80s.
Eddie George, Robert Smith. Yeah.
Robert Smith. Yeah. I remember my first when I moved the first game I saw as a resident of Columbus was Mike Lanise caught one catch for like 18 yards, and Ohio State ended up winning the game like 13-6, and it was. I imagine Columbus went nuts. I mean, they had lost a couple years in a row, and that's when because I was able to watch the game. I always liked Ohio State even as a kid because I was always fascinated by the Buckeye leaves, advancing on the helmet. I always loved the stickers. I always thought that was cool. So
I wasn't.
Yeah, it was awesome actually. And you're a communist for saying it isn't.
What about Brutus, dude? I hate Brutus. I hate that thing, whatever. What is he? I don't even know what he is, but I can't stand him.
Brutus
I
Buckeye?
hate that one guy in the crowd that's like 60 years old, and he looks like, face paint. I hate that guy.
I hate super fans. I hate Buckeye guy. I hate Bucknut. I hate your Michigan dude that has the cape and the stupid wrestler mask.
Come on,
man. Quit drawing attention to yourself. It's about the game. It's not about you.
We're going to need some turnovers. We're going to need some homer calls by the officials. I'm kind of counting on that at Ann Arbor this weekend. But Michigan's going to need a little help. They don't match up well on paper with the Buckeyes, but you know what? The thing Michigan is doing well right now is they're throwing the ball well. And
you're doing it against crappy teams.
If they could crease the Buckeyes a couple times on some long passes, then at least give them a shot. But Michigan's going to need some help. But I think we got a shot this weekend. I think they can. Nothing better. We're not going to be in the playoff race, so why not drag a team out of it? Even though Ohio State will probably still be in it. But
I was going to say, even if Ohio State loses, which would be unthinkable to me, I've gotten so spoiled, but I don't care because after the Cooper years, I don't care if Michigan ever wins another game.
Cooper, what terrible Cooper? That guy sucked.
Yeah, he was. Let me ask you this question.
Ask away.
You got your boy in Harbaugh, and he was going to be the guy that fixed this problem about beating Michigan State and beating Notre Dame and beating Ohio State. I think he's beaten Michigan State twice now, in a row, maybe 3 times a total. I can't remember.
He hasn't lived up to what he was supposed to do here.
If Harbaugh wasn't brought in to win 9 or 10 games a year and go to the Pinstripe Bowl, he wasn't. He was brought in to beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten East, win the Big Ten, and get a spot in the college football playoff. Best he'll do is this year he'll finish 3rd, thanks to that Cinnamon.
Let's cut you off real quick. Michigan has beat Indiana 39 out of the last 40 times they played them. That's crazy.
What?
Ted, you just cut out.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. You came back.
All right, continue on.
But there was a whole section you were talking about that nothing happened.
So Harbaugh was brought in to win the Big Ten, go to the college football playoff.
Right.
Best he's done is 3rd place in the Big Ten East. If he doesn't beat Ohio State this year, will the drumbeat grow for him to leave? And if it does, who could you conceivably replace him with? Because he's the ultimate Michigan man.
The only guy I could think you could replace him with, even though I think he won't be replaced, is, and I agree with everything he said up to that point. I'm disappointed. I've been supportive of what Harbaugh has done. I think part of his problem is he's never really had a good quarterback since he's been there, and I think he oversaw that. He's had some real scrub quarterbacks, and Patterson ain't much better.
And he's a quarterback guru guy.
Well, get this. They have a kid, Christian McCaffrey's little brother. They recruited 2-3 years ago. He was number 1 in the country in prospects for quarterbacks. And they brought him in. He's been on the bench. He's played 2 or 3 games a year. He's good. He's really good. And I sit here and Ruby's probably sick of hearing it saying, why don't they put McCaffrey in? He's just better. He makes way less mental errors than Shea Patterson makes. He's just a better pocket guy. He runs when he needs to. He's a good quarterback. McCaffrey's little brother, he's going to be our quarterback next year, and I think he's going to give us a better shot. But he hasn't had a good quarterback, but he hasn't really The only guy that's conceivably take his spot in my mind would be Les Miles, the old LSU coach, because he's center for Bo. And when you play center for Bo, you're like a captain of the offense more than the quarterback is. Bo Schembechler is very tough on the centers and the O-line in general. Listen to Dan Deerdorf and Bubba Paris. I talked to Bubba Paris one time at Walmart. I met Bubba Paris at Walmart in Santa Rosa. We had a long discussion about Michigan and defensive linemen in the NFL. Bubba Paris is a very cool dude. And he said Bo Schembechler could scare the offensive. He was so much harder on the offensive line than anybody else at practice.
Really?
So I would think Les Miles would be, it's got to be a Michigan man to come in. That'd be my only guess at this point. But even if he loses, Harbaugh's biggest problem, he's not only losing to Ohio State, but he follows it up with a bowl loss. So it's always the last 2 games of the season are just totally horrible. I think he'll fall out of favor, but I don't think he's going to get fired. I think he'd have to have like a, 4-8 or something.
Wow. To
get fired, because he's really, he's still considered the god around that campus. But he certainly hasn't delivered, but I'm anxious to see what he does with McCaffrey next year. And I think if he pulls this game out on Saturday, he's going to be back on top of the heap.
Yeah, I think he will too. No coach on either side of this rivalry, not even John Cooper, has started out 0-5 in the game. Cooper went 0-4. Harbaugh's 0-4. No coach has gone 0-5.
Well, good. Then we're going to hold true to that tradition on Saturday.
Until Jim Harbaugh on Saturday.
Oh, what's funny is since 1972, I've only missed one half of this football game. I've seen every one, dude. In 1987, I was hungover, and it used to start at 9 a.m. out here on the left coast. It used to start at 9 a.m. sharp, and I was hungover, and I slept through the first half of 87 game. But that's the only one the only part of any one of these. I've seen every one of these games. And
the 87 game, that was when Earl Bruce had gotten fired, like earlier in that week, and the Ohio State players wore the Earl headband, and they were a big underdog. They weren't supposed to win. And they pulled out a win in Ann Arbor.
Oh, they won that game.
Yeah.
So I was hungover and they lost. I can't even imagine what happened that afternoon. But I remember waking up and it was like 3 minutes. You wake up when you're hungover, you're kind of groggy and looking around and shit. And I go, oh my God. And I felt like it was like my life was going to end because I missed a little bit of that game. I'm thinking, I hope none of my family, my uncles don't know, because I've never missed one. Wow. No matter where I'm at, I'm always going to see this game. This is probably, the Vikings, we missed, games over the years or whatever. This Michigan, Ohio State, even though it's still unpleasant, we've only won once in the last, 100 years. I'll never miss this game. I love this game. I love the hype for it. I love the teams running out on the field, whether it's at the Horseshoe or the Big House. This is the best rivalry in college football.
It's the best rivalry in all sport, period, dot.
And Michigan can get the rivalry right back on track with a huge upset this week. Vegas is only, 8 points, which is kind of surprising. I don't know
why. Is it down to 8?
Yeah, why is it only an 8-point spread? That's very...
Well, Michigan's been playing better lately. They're at home, and that always, I think, when you have two good teams, I think even the team that's favored is going to lose a couple points because... Michigan, the Big House is a home field advantage.
I wonder what the weather's going to be like. I hope it's good weather. I don't
know. So, what do we got, Dave? What's the weather?
Just looking up the weather. The weather for Saturday is a high of 37 with rain moving in at approximately 6 p.m. local time.
Oh, the game will be over by then.
Starts at noon.
Yeah.
So it should be 37 and cloudy.
It's going to be real cloudy on the Buckeyes sideline. It's going to be gloomy and cloudy and shit.
No, it's not.
Everybody's
Harbaugh's going to commit ritual seppuku in the fourth quarter.
Everybody. Fields going to be pointing at, what's his name? The coach, Jim Jones? What's it? I don't even know his name. Brian Day.
You're going to know the name. You're going to know the name by 4 o'clock.
You're costing us the national championship with your shit game plan. Dobbins is going to be on crutches. It's all going to fall apart, Ted. So enjoy it this week because it's all going to fall apart.
We'll see.
Easy.
We shall see.
As long as we don't come out with the Broncos offense. Hail to the victors, baby.
Go Bucks. Beat that team up north.
We want to thank everybody that watched. This has been your college football, the big game, University of Michigan against Ohio State in the big house up in Michigan. Special from Good Morning Gjallarhorn. Any last words, you two?
Meow, meow, Buckeye cow.
Go Bucks. Beat that team up north.
Michigan 30, Buckeyes 14.
Gonna make Ted choke on his drink.